Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dojo Live. My name is Kim Lantis, and I'm airing live from my home with my dog Sansa in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Joining me is my co-host, America Guerrero out of Mexico
Hey,
City.
everybody.
Hey,
Hello,
America.
the jungle.
Hi. Welcome to the jungle. And today, of course, the stars of our show, we're here to welcome Michael McCarthy, who is the CEO of Inkit, and his partner in crime, Luke Hofstadt, who is the president of marketing. And really what we're going to be talking about today is data, sensitive data, and document streaming. But before we get more into the details of our topic, we'd love to get to know you two guys a little bit better. Thank you, first of all, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. So who wants to go first? I do have to, don't look the teacher in the eye. I'm kidding. let's hear from you first, Michael.
I'll kick it off. I'll just give a quick background, and I'll hand it over to Luke. So I'm Michael McCarthy. I'm the CEO at Inkit. We are a 2.5-year-old startup venture-backed business based in the United States. My quick background is prior to this, I worked in investment banking for some time. I have a background in computer science as well. And one of the big problems that I saw out in the world was that data right now is many times being handled at rest, and data at rest is at risk. And what I mean by that is files, documents, bank statements, healthcare information, et cetera, is many times being stored unnecessarily when it can actually be provided in real time as a stream. And so that's really where our product comes in. I'll hand it over to Luke. Luke can kind of give his quick background.
Yes, please. Who are you?
Credibility real. Hey, I'm Luke. So I'm the president of marketing at Inkit. I have a background in software engineering, statistics, and psychology. I've been a copywriter for a long time and a marketer, and eventually grew into the role of being in charge of marketing at Inkit. I think it's great. It's a very fun role, and I hope to give a little bit of an insight or share a couple thoughts and ideas on how we do things at Inkit.
Really interesting. A psychologist and a software engineer. You don't see those two mash up quite
like Dr. Strange.
In my experience, most software engineers really don't want much to do with people. They're
Wow.
So that's amazing. I love it. Perfect. So, America, what is today's topic?
So today's topic is sensitive data meets document streaming, a new technology for enterprise businesses. And the question is, data at rest is data at risk. Why? But what does that mean for companies? So please, guys, could you tell us why you choose this topic? Why is it relevant for today?
Yeah, so real high level, really what today's discussion is about is when we look at both startups, whether it's like a payment startup all the way up to a large business such as like an American Express. In all these facets of our lives, whether it's in healthcare, utilities, or financial services, on a day-to-day basis, each of us are having bank statements, healthcare documents, et cetera, that are generated for us. And just because we're generating those documents and storing them doesn't mean that that's the way that business should be done. And so what I mean by that is in the last few years, there's been a lot of vulnerabilities that have emerged with just storing documents. One is when you're just storing documents in the cloud, per se. Really, all we've done over the last 10 to 20 years is we've moved from a paper filing cabinet in one's office, and we've just moved that same filing cabinet up into the cloud per se, right? But the same inherent risks of that paper file cabinet are still available in the cloud. And so a few of those risks just, off the top are just unauthorized access. So, say you've got a bunch of keys to your house and you give your daughter a key, you give your son a key, and you give your nanny a key. And all of a sudden that nanny does something bad and you need to let her go. Well, if she still has access to those keys, she can still come into the house and steal those items from the house. Or, even worse, what happens if the nanny sets the keys down somewhere and her cousin, who's a burglar, makes a copy of the keys, right? well, all of a sudden somebody who you don't even know is going to be able to access that house. And in a very similar parallel, we even though we have these documents now in the cloud, we still are left with these same problems of like, how do we protect against unauthorized access? How do we prevent people from maliciously accessing these files? And as we might know, if I have access to America's or anyone's, entire bank statement or entire financial details, there's a lot of information and data in there that can be made, that people can use, maliciously, and it can make a lot of sense out of different things. So
it makes a lot of sense. So let's lean into how you're changing this up with document streaming.
Sure. So what we're doing is we're changing the way that business is done. And what makes this different is we're moving from static documents that are at rest, where say an American Express or a bank would just pull that file out of a storage bucket at the time that you want to see it. And what we're doing different is we're saying, let's not even generate the file in the first place. Let's generate it at the time of consumption, at the point of consumption. Meaning when I need to actually view or obtain that data, we create the file at that point in time on demand, just like creating like a Netflix show or creating a Netflix stream. And so what we do differently is we're able to create that file in real time. And what that means is it means that there's no carbon copy of it left in the cloud that somebody could go after and steal. So the best security is never having the item to even begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So the data to create that file is floating around, it's encrypted, or it exists, it's captured, but it's just not compiled until.
So what we're doing is, so great question. So we plug our API directly into the database. And when that database, so view it as like on one side, you got the database. On the other side, you may have like a portal of some sort. We live here in the middle, where when that portal needs to display a bank statement, that database will push the data to our API. Our API will then compose the document or the PDF as a stream. And then we can stream that into the actual portal for consumption by the end user. Mm-hmm. What that does is it's totally different, because the way that companies were previously doing it is, before us, they were just generating that file, sticking it in a storage bin or in a file cabinet. And then when I wanted to view it, they pulled it out of the file cabinet, but it was already generated sitting in the file cabinet. Right. Problem with that is most of the time, most of the things that are being generated for me, I never end up even viewing.
Yeah.
But we're just storing them in a file cabinet to store them in a file cabinet.
So the premise here, from what I understand, is it a lot easier, technically speaking, to secure a database than it is to secure who knows how many hundreds, thousands, millions, billions of files.
It's a lot. So two things. One, it's a lot easier to secure the database. Two, that right now the model is you just have a carbon copy of those files, and you're eliminating an additional threat vector. And then I think 3 and 4 are, number 3 is you're preventing you're making it much harder for insider threat, meaning you have API keys, roles, and logs. And then the 4th is that we provide leak prevention. So by streaming a file, it makes it a lot harder for somebody to download it or forward it than just sending out like a PDF as an attachment.
Very cool. So what's the end user experience for this like? I don't know if you want to speak to that, Luke. Like, what are they seeing? Do they feel or see anything different than the process that they're?
That's kind of the weird thing. They don't really notice that much of a difference. So them, it's just like, I'm getting a PDF and I'm getting some document that I'm able to see, but they don't necessarily experience a different experience than before. The key simply is that now that document is no longer existing anywhere, right? You're not going to see that document floating around in someone's email inbox or on some USB sticks or whatever. It's just generated on demand, and then on demand you get to view it too.
Very cool.
So it's very much from the perspective of the business that you're benefiting.
Very good. And so me as the end user, I have full control. Or is this something that I have to regenerate and restream if I need
Yeah,
to?
so like imagine this, like I have my phone here. Now, if I were to get the document on my phone, what's going to happen is I get to view it and I get to see the document. And then when I close the document, it's no longer there. It's not hidden on my phone. It's not going to be there. It's going to be completely gone. So any financial data, so say you're looking in your bank statements or whatever, and you're opening your statement on your phone, it's no longer going to be on your phone. So nobody could hack into your phone and then get that data. And similarly, it'd be the same for computer or a tablet or any other device that is receiving the streamed data or the streamed document.
Fascinating. But if I do want to have or require a document that I can pass on to someone else or print or whatever it may be, I still have that capability as well.
Yeah,
Nice.
so basically through the API, you can still decide if you want to make use of streaming or if you just want to give that document to a person. So you can retrieve, because what we do, we both do the generation and the distribution of documents. So if you need to make a bunch of standardized documents, you can use our API to do that. But we also help with the distribution. So you can either stream it to people, or you can just retrieve it and download it and still get it on your computer.
And are there any verticals that you focus on? For example, you said financial. Are there more that you could share?
Yeah, so our two pillars are basically either you want to generate lots of documents, and traditionally the process of going from say data to a document is not that complicated. But if you have a lot of standardized bulk data and you need to make a lot of documents, it can get a little tricky to make the right infrastructure to get that to work. So for us, the verticals that we are focusing on are regulatory markets.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, it's going to be people who want that volume or who want that massive bulk generation and automation of their documents.
Very cool. So who is your client? That's the vertical, but what are the benefits for your clients in terms of maybe it's just easier to secure their data, they need to have smaller internal engineering teams, or what are the benefits?
Do you want to share a few, Michael, or do you want me to?
I'll share a couple. So a few cliff notes just on benefits are: one, they no longer need to build anything in-house. So many times organizations have to attempt to try to build a document generation. Yeah, it's literally like this. They attempt to build a document generation system. Now, a couple things are, as Luke mentioned, so processing a PDF is very resource intensive. It takes around 1.7, we'll call it 2 seconds to do a PDF. So if I'm trying to process 100,000 PDFs at once, that's 100,000 times 2 seconds, all being queued up. So if a company tries to build this themselves, they're going to be faced with, one, there's a very large bottleneck problem that they have to architecturally figure out how to do these in parallel. And two, then they need to think about, okay, how do we approach streaming? How do we approach access roles, keys, provisioning, all the security features, canary tokens, which is being able to view logs and analytics on how long a document's being viewed. So these are all things that just a company's just not going to want to build in-house. And so what we do is we provide just this central source or the central truth of API. Basically, it's an API that has, it's like the soul of, the source of truth, where an organization can plug this in and they now all of a sudden have these advanced security features and permissioning. And I think that goes back to those two main pillars, which are, one, leak prevention. So we're going to prevent our end users from being able to leak documents. And two, we're also going to prevent insider threat or somebody from the inside actually getting access to this. And again, and when I say insider threat too, it could even be third parties, right? Maybe it's a subcontractor, maybe it's a consulting company that's then subcontracting it out to another subcontractor. Yep. But a lot of times we've seen API keys, or even just access controls inadvertently get shared, and we solve for that problem.
Very cool. No, and I mean, a lot of times even an inside threat is completely unintentional and just human error, right? Mm-hmm. Probably most of the time, that's what it comes down to. So that's great. Now,
I always share a funny story with that, because it's we get to generate, or we let you generate your documents. So if you were to imagine someone literally infiltrating your business, if they get on a computer and say they have the permissions of someone that works there, right? They're in the Inkit environment and they're trying to access those documents. Well, first they're going to need their login details, so they're going to need their credentials. Then, based on the systems or the permissions that they have, they only get to access specific documents that they want to. Then, if they do get access to those documents, if we stream them to them, they're not able to save them on a device and transfer them over to a USB stick. So then the last resort that they can take is they can grab their phone again and they can take a picture. So like we have these several layers that make sure that it just becomes harder to actually steal data. And I think that's like a big crucial benefit that we're giving to companies.
And
Yeah,
how
yeah, for sure.
often, how often do you change this? How often you need to make modifications on that that maybe by error it could happen, but with people that focus on that, how do you keep innovating? How do you keep making those modifications?
Like for the end user, or how do we keep
For
improving
the,
the product?
exactly, improving that.
Yeah, like we keep thinking of new ways to make sure that we become even more secure. For example, we've looked at like how can we prevent people from taking a picture? Is there some sort of technology to even improve the product? So like if you grab your phone and if you try to take a live picture that you're not able to, like the software somehow detects it or it does some sort of encryption that it's impossible to take a picture. Of course, it's going to be easier to say block someone from taking a screenshot. We can just make sure that's not possible when you're in the app. But we're trying to constantly be one step ahead. And honestly, I think that's really fun on the technology side.
Mhm.
Like we're really pursuing, new technology or new trends or new ideas, which to me is very satisfying. But on a company level and to our clients, we really try to make sure that we keep being, further than the regulatory standard, like of security, right? We don't want to be like here. We want to be way above it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that looking ahead and figuring out what's next. I think that your quality assurance team must have a lot of fun trying to break things.
Yeah.
They do.
Because I mean, to me, it seems like what you're saying, you're setting up these different layers, like what could happen if you want to use the example of a home. You could live in a gated community, and then I have my own personal gate, and then you need the voice command of this and the guard dog, but eventually somebody can just get a steak and be like, here puppy.
Mhm.
Right? So
Mhm.
I mean, there's all these
Mhm.
layers of trying to say what's next and how far are people willing to go. But then the alternative of, like I probably could break into that house, but this one looks just a heck of a lot easier, so I'm going to go over there.
It's like
And
deterrence. It's like it's a big part.
Exactly. So I do have a question, and please don't laugh at me if I'm completely off base here, because this is a very new concept for me, and I have no engineering background like as you folks do. But
Sure.
I know that there's this idea of blockchain and sort of this checks and balances, and with your APIs, is this like this has to be approved here and approved here, and when this kind of community agrees it's legit. Is that something that you guys are leaning into as well, like with your API to help secure
Yes.
everything all across?
We don't utilize blockchain, but what we do utilize is a zero trust, zero knowledge model. So what that means is, excuse me, if I'm a user, and many times a user might be a system. If I go back to that earlier example, my database might be the one that has what's called write access, which means they can write or create a file. And my portal might have only read access. The idea is that these both have different roles and permissions. This one can create the file, but it can't read what it's making. This one, the portal can read it, but it can't actually create it.
Mhm.
And so by doing such, you can essentially start to segment out these different roles
Mhm.
such that somebody over here can't like be reading and creating the file at the same time.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It just different components that when they come together, they make a whole. I love it. See, that's so easy, in a way for me to even be able to understand that. That's amazing. So let's talk about you guys as your creation of this. Sounds like you mentioned how much easier this Inkit is making it for companies if they don't have to build these types of things by themselves, because it's a massive build. It's complicated. What did that build look like for you guys? How long did it kind of take to come up with this idea and work your way through it? And maybe some words of wisdom of what did you do right and what might you have done differently?
So I can chime in here. It took a long time to build this with a full team. So it's short answer is it takes a team to build this. There's no single person that built this. And I think what we're really focused on is there are a lot of companies that will say, okay, we can generate documents, right? Or we can create a PDF. To that we say, great job. But what makes us different is this whole security element where we're able to do this securely, and we're able to make sure that there's zero trust and zero knowledge behind what's being created. And so for us, like that's the big differentiator is, creating a document's a dime a dozen, but being able to do it with access roles, permissions, streaming, all of these differentiate, or all these things that make us different. Those are what really are the secret sauce.
Perfect. And with that, you what did you do right from the very beginning when you attempted this build? And what did you maybe not do right?
So what we did right is we have the right team. So we hired, and we have a team that performs very, very well together as a unit. So everyone's going in the same direction at all times. I think that's really the most important thing, is having the right people on the bus, because if one person's driving this way and the other person's driving that way, you're not going to end up at the same result. So I'm a believer that having the right team is what's most important, and that teams win. I think what maybe we didn't do right is, I don't know if this is, you always want to go faster. So we always want to, the faster we can get things done, the better. And so there's always times where, I wish we could move faster, but I think that's with every organization, whether you're big or small or venture backed or not venture backed. Everyone wants to go faster.
How old is the organization?
2.5.
So we're about two and a half, coming up on 3 years. Yeah.
Okay.
What is it let's switch it a little bit over to your company culture now. How is it that you as a company have fostered the need for speed? What does that look like? If you're willing to share, how you've got your team structured, or what have you found that's been successful for you in order to build fast?
Luke, you want to take this?
Yeah, sure.
He's like marketing side, engineering side.
Yeah, so I found that having smaller teams works well. So if you have the right people, like Michael said, if you have people that are motivated and that are really into what you're doing, not just only from an extrinsic level, but also from internally, then it becomes a lot easier to move fast. And I know it sounds a little cliche, but it really just comes down to treating people well, being good to your customer, or being good to your customers, being good to your team, and just having, we're still here to win, but we're also people. So if we make sure that we're all having fun while we're going at it, then I think everyone wins. And I think that's really what we've fostered in the company, at least from my experience. And that's what I hear from people who work with us. And I personally only want to continue that, because to me, it's amazing.
Yeah. And it sounds really cliche, but I have seen in core values from tech companies that laugh is one of their core values. That being unique, transparency, of course, but there is always going to have that
Laughter.
Funny part. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Laugh about the failures and the successes, just be well, we did something wrong or we did something great. It's you got to be in it together. If you don't do that, it's going to be impossible to get anywhere.
Perfect. So we've already established that you're looking for people who are transparent, willing to be intimate, people who might be wanting to work in that more, small, intimate space. The ability, kind people. What else? If I want to come work for Inkit, what types of qualities are you looking for from you.
Yeah, I can give out a couple. So a few core values are: we want people who are owners, not people that are going to rent. So we want people that are going to come in and are actually going to own processes and not just rent per se. So when you take ownership, that's different than just renting. So that's a big component. We also want people who are going to play to win. So one of our like core values is we want people to go all in on these, big ideas. And so we're going to play to win. If it's not our strength, we're not going to go do it.
And how do you keep that balance? Because I remember that you said that at the beginning you wanted to go in the same direction, but you at the same time want that ownership. At that, how do you say? I'm translating the word.
What word? You can give me the Spanish word and I'll help.
Well, how do you keep that balance?
Between ownership and then all moving in the same direction simultaneously?
Exactly. Yes.
So number one, you need to set very clear goals and objectives for the organization at organizational level. But then you also need to hire the right people and trust those people to go achieve those goals. And when you trust those people, you're basically, giving them that ownership to own those different, KPIs or goals or milestones.
Very cool. How do you go about establishing your goals and your specific milestones? Is that something that like leadership will establish and present, or are you doing that as a group as well?
We do a lot of that just in a smaller leadership group where we just come up with those, but then we make sure that those get distributed, to everyone across the business.
It's like you establish the North Star, right? You tell everyone, well, this is where we're going. And like that can be on like a departmental level as well. So it's like, well, at engineering, this is our goal for the next year. Like we're going to try to improve, say, I don't know, customer activation, right? And then like say for marketing, we say we want to get more acquisition. So like we have these like North Stars, but we don't like exactly tell people, like we don't micromanage people, tell them how to get there. Yeah, it's like, let's go there, take ownership and like make suggestions, take the initiative. And like, if something's really wrong, we'll tell you it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like if it's a bad idea, we'll tell you it's bad. But like we want that initiative and like Michael said, those big ideas, because I think that's what drives innovation forward.
Very, very cool. So we're coming to the absolute final minutes of today's show. And what I want to ask the both of you is what you've learned through this journey. How are you, Michael, and how are you, Luke, better people because of having been part of InKit?
Do you want to start, Mike?
Please start, because I don't know how to say.
Well, I would answer that with every day. I'm always learning lots of different things. So I think that being at a startup, when you're around good people and people that are smarter than you learn a lot. So I think the most important thing is you just being humble is like a big part of it, and making sure that you're always learning. And so I think, there's a lot of things I've learned daily, constantly.
I've learned that I'm always learning, and I will always be learning.
Yeah, and I think that's another big piece too. Is just like when we for hiring and when we look to hires, we want people that are, number one, like very humble, but also people that are truth seekers. Mm-hmm. We want people that ask why and question why things are the way they are, and that are seeking that truth.
Lovely, thank you. And you, Luke, words of wisdom?
I would say it's the mistakes. It's when you're deep in the depths, and if you're when you don't know what to do, and when things are going wrong or things aren't going like you expect them to go. That's like those are the moments you learn the most. Like, and that's what makes you a better person if you can get through. It's it's like what Churchill said. If you're going through hell, you just got to keep going.
Yeah, we actually had a guest a couple of weeks ago mention something like both quitting and moving forward hurt. They're both painful. So you might as well just keep moving forward.
Might as well just go. Like if it's all, difficult, just keep going. And those are going to be the moments that you look back on and think, wow, like that's when I learned.
Yes, of course. Well, thank you for sharing your experience, your company, and a bit about yourselves with us here today on Dojo Live. Very interesting concept, document streaming. When I need it, only when I need it, and then poof, it's gone. I love it. I think as far as sensitive data is concerned, it's up and coming. America, this was our final show of the week. So
Yeah.
are we ready to announce next week's show, or shall we just do that on Monday's recap?
Yes, I'm ready. On Monday, we're going to have a recap. And what I can see on the live is that we are going to have two shows. One is going to be, the guest is going to be David Burns, CEO at Morpheo. He's going to talk about using tech to connect solar functions. And then we have another show with Matt Burns. He is the head of corporate affairs at Streamer Medicine, and he is going to talk about from startups to solving healthcare's biggest challenges. So don't miss it.
Yes, perfect. We do have a show on Wednesday as well, and that is going to be with Storewise, who is and the CEO, who is Chris Greco. We don't have a topic on that one yet, but we do have a full week, 3 shows every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 12 o'clock Pacific. Don't miss it. Michael, thank you again. Luke, thank you again, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, America.
Goodbye.
Appreciate it.